And anyone who's ever served as an MC can tell you, trying to get a crowd to sit down of about 700, it's like herding cats. And you can be emphatic, you can tap the microphone, people can clink glasses, and you're just thinking, how do we get this train to pull out? And I was there that evening, and Kay was the MC. And I was, I think, starting to get to know Kay then. I really knew her just a little bit, but never really seen her in action. And this crowd was just going and going and going. And I thought, they were being quite rude. And I think we sat down. And finally, and with great authority, and what I call a command presence, it was Kay. She said, "Sir, you in the gray suit, sit down. Ma'am, sit down." Oh, people dropped just like that. And I've never forgotten that, Kay. And it was wonderful.
Awesome.
It's when you're right and you speak with conviction, and it was time to sit down. Anyway, but I'll never forget that. I have a couple of introductions, folks. Just delighted to have my wife of almost 31 years. Terry is with us here today. Serving in public services, I think of it as really full immersion. You're diving into the deep end of the pool, and it really does affect your whole family, so I'm really grateful for Terry. We have just a wonderful, talented, and gifted district director. She works very, very hard. Her name is Shannon Kendrick, and she's here with us today. Thank you for being here, Shannon, on a Sunday. And let's see, Esmel, he tried to get away, he can't. This young man, a VCU grad, really sharp. He's with me about 16 hours a day. He deserves a medal for that. Esmel Meeks over here off to your left. Okay, let me just convey to you how really excited and delighted, really, I am to be here with you today. Our nation needs leaders to rise up, leaders in the best sense of the word, and to rise up. And so to be with you today and to be even a little part of the Gloucester Institute, Terry and I have been there. We've captured the vision. You can't help, if you spend some time with Kay, to capture, to hold on to the vision. So I applaud you for being in the program. I encourage you to soak up each and every minute and the wisdom of your colleagues and your classmates, and also those that you have the privilege to interact with in the short time that you're in the program. And then, of course, and always spread the good word. Encourage people to know more about the Gloucester Institute. It is not only part of Black heritage, African American heritage, it is American heritage. And so I embrace it and hold on to it and accept it as my own, because as Americans, it is part of our DNA. And that journey, what occurred at the Gloucester Institute and under that big oak tree and all of that, needs to be told and preserved for you to pass on to your children and for me to pass on to mine. Okay, standing before you today is a businessman turned public servant. I was sharing with Shannon and Terry and Esmel as we walked in here. I said, 25 years ago I rode my bike to this place, to this building right here. We lived in some apartments right down the street. My wife Terry and I did. And if you would have said then that I'd be here now with the privilege, the great privilege and honor to serve and represent the 2nd District, I could not have believed it. And also, just as I'd say, as recent as 3 years ago, if you would have said, "Scott, I know what the future holds for you. You're going to run for office, you're going to win," and I would have said, "What? This was not on the bucket list of life." And so it's been an amazing journey, and I was impressed and delighted to see this instruction on debate. And I'm glad that I didn't have to decide who won. The points were compelling, but this transition from businessman into the public service, and for me, I think of it as a season of public service. It's not so much who I am, but it's what I'm doing right now. It's a call to duty. It's been a very rewarding in many ways, but very challenging in many ways. And I want to there's so many aspects that we could talk about. We could talk about policy. We could talk about what it's like to serve, and if we, with the indulgence of Kay, the other moderators, if we have time to get into a question and answer, I'd be delighted, because I really feel like that's oftentimes the best part of a conversation rather than me just speaking. But I do want to share a few things with you, and of all that I've learned, and all that I've experienced over the last 2.5 years from the moment that I declared, it's really been quite the ride. But I want to share with you something today that I share across this district. And I can think of no higher honor in some ways than for Esmel to have gotten in the car, I don't know, some time ago. And he said, "Sir," he said, "you say the same thing to every group." I thought, wow, I'm delighted to hear that. You know, sometimes the venue doesn't suit every message, but you know, I'm going to share with you the same message that I shared with the Tea Party in my office on First Colonial Road. I'm going to share with you the same message I shared with my colleagues in Congress. I'm going to share with you the same message I shared with high school students across this great district. I'm going to share with you what I share with my Republican friends on a Saturday morning breakfast where they're all Republicans, okay? I think it's important that you, because it fits, I think, nicely with this whole discussion about civility and public discourse. And as a context to that, I'd say that I hold the view that the very foundation of our republic, our country, if you just project it out 5, 10, 15 years, there are troubled waters, fiscally, principally fiscally. And as a businessman, a lifetime experience of looking at a balance sheet and a financial statement, my wife will tell you I often get up at 4:30 or 5 a.m. because I'm just troubled by what I see ahead. Now we can get through it. We've got to make good decisions, and we've got to make them soon. But this is my story of my 15 months of service in trying to advance these things. We all know that Congress is like wrapped around an axle. Whether a person is African American, Caucasian, Latino, Hispanic, it really doesn't matter. Whether a person is a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, or never given it much thought, it doesn't matter. I see the same thing across the district, and I suppose it's across the country. There's an unease, there's a fear, an angst level of like something's wrong here, especially for folks our age. You're going, you know, things have always been challenging, but this is a particularly challenging time. And so as I go to work every day, and these 3 points I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share with you 3 points today that I'm very deliberate in trying to address why Congress is like wrapped around the axle, and we seem to be particularly polarized as a country right now. And it's hurting your future. It's hurting the future of my grandchildren and the generation they represent, the full fabric of our community. The 3 points are these. And I'm very deliberate about it as I go about the district in service to the country and our district. The first is civility. The second is a focus on the facts. And the third is motives. And let me unpack these for you very quickly, okay? This wasn't a speech that I just sat down and wrote out one day. It was more, I think as the new phrase is, it was organic. It just kind of evolved over time, and I found myself saying the same things across the district. With respect to civility, I think a lot of it is just speaking with one another as our mothers taught us to. You know, if my mother was right here or she attended every meeting, you know, would she be proud of me and how I'm speaking to my fellow human being? It has practical implications. I'll give you one. Both parties, I think, have violated the civility side. Both parties. I personally do not use the term Obamacare. I haven't. I don't. I'm deliberate about it. Why? Because I think it's pejorative. It's pejorative. It unnecessarily alienates us from our friends. Now, as I've shared across the district, and I ran on this, I don't think the Affordable Care Act is the best solution. Time doesn't permit us to get into all of that, but suffice it to say that I hold that view, that there are better alternatives, and I'm advancing those and will vote for those and have, but I don't call it Obamacare. Why? Because I think it personalizes it to the president. My objections are not with the president. My objections are with the content of the bill. Let's move on to the second, and that is facts, a reliance on the facts. So oftentimes in my 15 or 16 months of service, what I've seen is this. Both parties will pick a one element, one fact, they'll hold on to it, they'll wrap themselves around it, and but it's not given context, and it doesn't lead to good decision making. And as I share across the district, I say, look, the 2nd District sent a business person to Washington, and I only know, I got an MBA here, a master's degree in business, and I learned to read financial statements and balance sheets and income statements and to make decisions based off of data. And let me share with you something that I think is on the Republican side of the ledger again, and then I'll go, and I will be a little tough on my friends who are Democrats in just a moment. But with respect to facts, do we have a spending problem? Do we have a revenue problem? The answer is yes, both. Spending is at an unprecedented level. It's unsustainable in my view. It's a threat to liberty. It's far in excess of where we have been as a country. This needs to be acknowledged. Now let's look on the revenue side for just a moment. The math is not complex. You simply add up the total revenue of the last 11 years under this tax code. You add up total gross domestic product for the last 11 years under this tax code. Then you divide. The yield is 16.9%. 16.9%. Now, look for context in that. Is that a good number? Is that low? Is that high? What is it? Now, this is the most common used reference of where we are with respect to taxation. It's expressed as a percent of our gross domestic product. I look for context in this and see that we haven't been at 16.9% as a nation since Dwight Eisenhower defeated Adlai Stevenson in 1956. I've said on the House floor what I'm saying here. Any Republican who doesn't acknowledge that is denying reality. And we have a 1/3 increase in the number of seniors over the next 10 years. Revenue must increase. Expenses must decrease. What seems so obvious, and if you state something like that publicly, it becomes big news. I don't know any different. Those are where the facts lead me. Let's look at the third motive. It's been quite an experience. Let's just say this is the House floor. Okay, this is where the Democrats sit. This is where the Republicans sit. If anybody who wants to switch sides right now, you can. All right, okay? All right, so listen. I sit over here, and I've got lots of friends over here. But I heard a friend, I had lunch with him one day. He's in the Virginia delegation. I won't mention who he is. And then later on that day, he stands up, gets on the House floor, and basically was saying, looking over at the House Republican budget, okay, referred to as the Ryan budget, the path to prosperity. And he says, Republicans don't care about the poor. Republicans don't care about our minority communities. Republicans don't care about the elderly. You know, we're just getting to know each other today. But I can tell you, I was just going, this is wrong. I would say to my Democrat friend, now I already hit the Republicans twice, y'all. Bear with me. I'd say to my Democrat friend, you may care as much, but you do not care more. You may disagree with my methodology. You might disagree with the policy. You might disagree with my solution. Fair. We must, and we should have spirited debate on the House floor. We should have spirited debate across this great country, in this great institution, and at every American kitchen table. Spirited debate was at the foundation of our country, and it will continue. It should. Civility does not mean weakness. Argued the point with great passion, but with civility and a deep respect for the facts. But quite frankly, I resent it when others will mischaracterize my motives. Now, let me give you an application of this. I believe to my very core that President Obama wakes up every day intent on creating jobs. I believe that. I don't question that. I question the wisdom of some of his decisions, and that's okay. I'm an American. I don't forfeit my right to do that. So, let me give you an example. This is not partisan. It's just so you'll know how I think, and hopefully it'll trigger a question or two. The President's all-of-the-above energy policy. When he shared that in the House floor at the where he addressed the joint session,